Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission, as always, is to take complex source material and make it really clear, really actionable for you.
Glad to be diving in again.
Yeah. So today we're exploring something fascinating: cultivating change, pioneering models for K-12 education in Latin America, and the sources we're working from. It's this incredibly detailed presentation put together by Barbara Etheridge, Cheryl Rubinovitzy, and Carlita Brinich. Their goal, and ours today, is really to zero in on these innovative educational models, ones that are genuinely boosting equity, creativity, critical thinking, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. The aim is about nurturing students who are, compassionate, future ready global citizens.
Exactly. But before we jump into the specific models, you mentioned it's crucial to understand the background, right? The history.
You really do. To appreciate why these innovations are so important, you've got to look at the historical landscape of education in Latin America. These models didn't just pop up out of nowhere.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Setting the stage helps see why radical change wasn't just desirable, but necessary.
Precisely. If you go way back, pre 20th century, you've got the colonial foundation. Education, then. It was basically a tool for exclusion for consumer.
Mostly by the church.
Almost entirely by the Catholic Church, yeah. And it served only the local elites, indigenous groups, rural populations. They were deliberately kept out, systematically.
Wow. Okay, so then things start to shift.
Big shift in the early to mid 20th century. That's the nationalist project era. After various revolutions, you see states centralizing education,
taking control back from the church.
right, promoting public, secular, mass schooling. But the goal here was largely political. It was about forging a single national identity, trying to unify these really diverse post-colonial societies.
Okay, unification through schooling. And then came a really big ideological shakeup, I gather. The 60s and 70s.
Oh, absolutely. The liberation movement.
Yeah.
This is where Paulo Freire and his ideas about critical pedagogy just explode onto the scene.
I've heard his name mentioned a lot in education circles.
You would have. He fundamentally challenged the status quo. Freire argued that education wasn't neutral. In its current form, he said, it was actually a tool of oppression.
Strong words.
Very. So his critical pedagogy, it wasn't just about learning facts, it was about empowering marginalized groups to use education to analyze their own reality, their own world, and critically to transform it.
That emphasis on agency, on changing your circumstances.
Yeah.
That feels really modern.
It's foundational. You'll see echoes of that in so many of the models we're about to discuss. It really paved the way.
Which brings us closer to today, the modern era. So like 1980s onward.
Exactly. And here it gets, a bit more complex. You see a mix of things. Neoliberal decentralization is a big one, pushing decision-making away from the central government down to local levels.
Okay.
But alongside that, there's this intense focus on equity, on quality, and crucially on digital inclusion, using technology to try and close those persistent achievement gaps between different groups.
So that whole history, from exclusion to state control to liberation ideas to this modern focus on equity and tech, it shows the challenge isn't just what kids learn, is it?
Not at all. It's also who gets to learn and why they're learning it.
Yeah.
And that context, that history of struggle and change, it perfectly sets up why these 15 case studies the presenters looked at are so significant.
Right. And these weren't just randomly picked. The presentation mentioned strict criteria.
Very strict. They needed to show diverse goals, so not just about test scores, but social emotional learning too. They had to have proven success, cover different regions, and use varied approaches, some traditional, some heavy on tech, some blended.
Okay, makes sense. Let's dive into the first cluster then, the active learning pioneers, starting with case one, Colégio Equipe in Brazil, founded way back in 68.
Yeah, Equipe is fascinating. Its whole philosophy is built around being democratic, collaborative, and really driving student curiosity.
And they have this guiding principle.
They do. To study is to seek answers to problems with method. That little phrase, with method, that's the key. It's not just about finding answers, it's about the process.
So it's more like an apprenticeship in thinking.
Exactly. And their high school monograph project really embodies this. Every single senior spends a whole year on original research.
A whole year.
A whole year. It culminates in a formal thesis, like a mini dissertation, and then a public defense in front of a panel.
Wow. A public defense in high school. That sounds incredibly demanding, especially compared to, just taking final exams. What does that do for the students?
Well, it completely flips the script, doesn't it? The student isn't just passively receiving knowledge or waiting for a grade from some central authority. They become the expert, the knowledge creator.
I see. So that rigor, that requirement to research, create, and defend.
It builds exactly those skills needed for the 21st century, right? Critical thinking, communication, confidence. It goes way beyond just academic knowledge.
Okay, that's a powerful example of student agency. Let's pivot to a very different challenge: inclusion for students with diverse abilities. Case 2, the Centro and Sullivan del Peru, or CASP.
Right. CASP focuses on individuals with conditions like autism, Down syndrome, and other developmental differences. And their big innovation isn't just a curriculum, it's what they call the power of two model.
Power of two.
Yeah, they train the professionals and they train the families. The core idea is to empower parents to be their child's primary teachers, integrating learning into everyday routines at home.
So learning isn't confined to a clinic or a special classroom, it's embedded in daily life.
Exactly. It democratizes the teaching. And they use applied behavior analysis, ABA, but they make it practical for parents.
ABA can sound quite technical. How does that translate into, say, helping with breakfast?
That's where their functional natural curriculum is key. Instead of abstract academic stuff, they focus intensely on practical, real world life skills: self care, communicating needs, getting ready for potential jobs later on.
Things that directly impact independence.
Precisely. So ABA provides the structure, breaking down skills, using positive reinforcement, but it's all applied to functional everyday activities. And it works. It's been so successful, they've replicated this model in over 30 countries.
That's incredible reach. And it really highlights that empowering ecosystems theme the source mentioned. Families as partners.
Absolutely. Which connects nicely, actually, to case 4, to close, to pays. Their focus isn't just one school or one group, it's about systemic change across Latin America.
Systemic and sustainable transformation. How do they approach that?
Their core idea is pushing for deep learning, moving away from just memorizing facts for tests
Rote learning.
and shifting towards meaningful real world problem solving. But to do that, you have to change how teachers think and teach.
And they work at multiple levels to achieve that. I saw mention of working with governments.
Yeah, they partner directly with ministries of education, like in Chile. They train school leaders, and they run these huge initiatives like Protagonists of Change. That program train over 2,500 teachers specifically in project based learning.
So, top down and bottom up. Training leaders and teachers.
You need both for systemic change. It's holistic. This also links to Case 3, WE Charity. They have this integrated service learning approach.
Connecting local action with global citizenship.
Exactly. Through their WE Schools and WE Villages programs, they focus on 5 key pillars for sustainable development: education, water, health, food, and economic opportunity.
The sources gave that example in Kenya, right?
Yeah.
The farm and the hospital working together.
Yeah, the Olishwa Farm providing food and job skills, and the Baraka Hospital providing healthcare. It shows how sometimes to make education work, you have to tackle those basic socioeconomic needs first. You can't learn if you're hungry or sick.
It makes total sense. Okay, so we've seen active learning, inclusion, systemic change. Now let's talk about specific frameworks and tech tools that support these ideas, starting with what the sources called changemaker pedagogy.
Right, and the big framework here is Design for Change, or DFC. It's a global movement active in over 70 countries, which is pretty amazing.
70 countries.
Yeah.
What's the core idea?
It's deceptively simple, but powerful. It's about fostering the belief in kids that I can make a difference. And they do this through a clear 4-step process called the FIDS framework.
FIDS. Okay, break that down. Because it seems like this framework pops up elsewhere too, like in Case 11, the New Generation Club.
It does. It's very adaptable. FIDS stands for 1, feel. Kids identify problems they care about in their own communities. Empathy is the starting point.
Okay, feel the problem.
2, imagine. Then they brainstorm creative solutions. No idea is too crazy at this stage.
Imagine solutions. Got it.
3, Dio. This is the action part. They actually implement their chosen solution. They make it happen.
Do the work.
And finally, 4, share. They share their story, their project, their results to inspire others.
Feel, imagine, do, share. It takes that critical awareness we talked about with Frere and gives it a concrete, actionable structure for kids.
Exactly. It turns critique into a curriculum for civic engagement. That clarity is probably why it scales so well globally.
Okay, so that's the change-making framework. Now let's look at some specific ed tech tools that build foundational skills. Case 5, Code Monkey Studios.
Yeah, CodeMonkey is really neat. It's a game based platform teaching real coding, starting from age 5 up to about 14.
Coding from age 5. How does that work?
It starts really intuitively with block based coding, like dragging puzzle pieces, very visual, very game like. But then, crucially, it smoothly transitions students to text based coding.
Real programming languages.
Yep, CoffeeScript and Python. So they're not just playing games, they're actually learning the syntax and logic of real world programming. Plus, they have this award winning AI literacy component, which is pretty unique for K 12.
Teaching kids about artificial intelligence principles early on. That seems vital now.
Absolutely. Understanding how AI works, the ethics involved, it's becoming basic literacy for the future.
Okay, another tech tool, but for Math Case 10, better marks. Their philosophy sounds quite counterintuitive. Allow mistakes.
It does sound counterintuitive in traditional education, doesn't it? But it's actually really smart pedagogy. Better Marks is an adaptive platform for grades 4, 8, and up.
Adaptive meaning it adjusts to the student.
Exactly. And when a student makes a mistake, it doesn't just mark it wrong, it gives immediate constructive feedback. And importantly, it analyzes the pattern of errors.
Pattern of errors. So it figures out why they're getting it wrong.
Precisely. Maybe they keep confusing multiplication and division, or they don't understand a specific concept like fractions. The platform identifies that underlying misconception and then generates targeted practice to fix that specific issue.
So mistakes become data points for personalized learning.
Exactly. Failure becomes a structured learning opportunity. It builds resilience and persistence, not just math skills.
That persistence theme connects well to engagement, which is key for any learning. Let's touch on tools focused on motivation and also the operational side, like Case 8, Manga High for Math.
Right. Manga High uses game based learning fun, interactive games, quizzes, even social competitions to make math engaging for K 12 students. It specifically targets not just cognitive skills, but also the affective domain.
Effective meaning, emotions.
Motivation.
Yeah, motivation, persistence, confidence, things that traditional teaching often overlooks but are crucial for tackling challenging subjects like math.
And then there's Case 9, Agent Piggy, tackling financial literacy, another critical life skill.
Definitely. Agent Piggy uses a really clever structure. Kids learn to save for goals, teaching delayed gratification. They learn to earn through challenges or allowances. And they learn to donate and spend wisely using a virtual piggy market.
So it makes abstract concepts like saving and budgeting very concrete and hands on for kids.
Exactly. Building responsible financial habits early. But, managing all these different tools and platforms can be a nightmare for schools.
Which brings us to the operational backbone. Case 7, Academia. Precisely. Academia aims to be the single integrated school management platform. Their motto is all for one and one for all. The idea is to replace that patchwork of different apps schools use for communication, grading, attendance, analytics.
One system to rule them all.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
It brings everything together. That kind of standardization makes it much easier to implement systemic improvements like the ones Clays 2PAIS is pushing for. It provides the infrastructure.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's quickly group the last few models, which seem to address very specific needs or contexts. Case 12, teaching. Graduate XU1.
Teaching is essentially a massive digital resource hub for the Spanish speaking world. It connects teachers, students, families, and provides access to, I think the source said, over 100,000 educational resources.
Wow. Facilitating sharing and collaboration on a huge scale.
Exactly. Then you have more specialized interventions, like Case 13, the Cultural Creative Center. They use arts murals, theater, music as a direct tool for education, but also for inclusion and social change.
Using culture itself as the medium for transformation.
Right. Tapping into local identity and expression. And then Case 14, Reading Rescue in Chile. This one's super focused.
The sources called it the most ancient, systematized, and highest impact reading program in Chile.
Yeah, quite a claim. But it highlights the power of a really well structured, targeted intervention for a foundational skill like early reading, especially for vulnerable kids. Sometimes focused is best.
And finally, Case 15, Innova Schools in Peru. This sounds like a model aiming for scale.
It is. Innova is a network of private schools, specifically targeting Peru's emerging middle class families. They aim to provide a high quality, innovative, yet affordable education across primary and secondary levels, and crucially, to do it across a large network. Proving quality can be scaled.
Okay, wow. That's a whirlwind tour of 15 really diverse approaches. If we try to pull it all together, synthesize it, what are the big overarching themes or takeaways that unite these models?
Well, looking across them, four major trends really stand out. First, and maybe most important, is student agency and active learning. This is absolutely central.
From Collegio y Cupas research projects to the FIDS framework.
Exactly. It's this fundamental shift away from students as passive recipients to students as active investigators, problem solvers, protagonists in their own learning journey. That's non negotiable.
Okay, trend one, agency. What's second?
Second is the idea of empowering ecosystems. Learning doesn't just happen inside the classroom walls. Real success involves the whole community.
Like CSP bringing families into the teaching process.
Yes, or to class, to pays, training not just teachers, but school leaders and working with ministries. It's about strengthening the entire support system around the student.
Makes sense. Ecosystems.
Yeah.
Third trend.
Third is democratizing access through equity and inclusion, ensuring that high quality learning is available to all students, regardless of their background, abilities, or location.
We saw that with CASP for disabilities, but also in the tech.
Right. Adaptive tech like CodeMonkey or BetterMarks helps bridge skill gaps and personalize learning, making advanced concepts potentially more accessible to more kids. Equity is woven through many of these models.
Okay. Agency, ecosystems, equity, and the fourth.
The fourth trend is engagement through gamification and real world application, making learning relevant and motivating.
Like Agent Piggy making finance tangible, or Manga High using games for math.
Exactly. If students are engaged, if they see the relevance to their lives, they're more likely to persist, especially through challenges. So, when you put these four trends together,
Agency, ecosystems, equity, engagement.
what you see is that these models collectively represent a really comprehensive rethinking of education. They're moving beyond just preparing kids for exams.
Right. They're prioritizing those crucial 21st century skills: critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, social emotional learning.
To prepare students for a complex, rapidly changing world, to prepare them for life, not just the next test.
It's a powerful vision. So here's a final thought for you, our listener, to chew on, building on all this. If these models, born from Latin America's specific historical challenges and really focus on localized, actionable change, if they're demonstrably cultivating these capable, empowered learners, what are the key systemic levers, maybe beyond just the specific tech or curriculum, that are most essential if we wanted to export this kind of cultivating change mindset to, say, industrialized nations that face their own educational challenges? Where should our next deep dive into educational innovation really begin?
A great question to ponder.
Indeed. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into these pioneering educational models from Latin America. We hope it gave you plenty to think about. We'll catch you next time.